Welcome to Foundations with Larisa Hovannisian, an unfiltered podcast where I explore the foundational principles of creators, entrepreneurs, scientists, public figures, and all around awesome people who make things happen. Welcome back to Foundations with Larisa Hovannisian. Today's guest is Suzanna Shamakhyan, Executive Director of FAST, Foundation for Armenian Science and Technology, a leading institution working to accelerate innovation and science in Armenia. With a background in education, policy, and social impact, Suzanna brings systems thinking and emotional intelligence into every room she walks into. She's also a mother, navigating leadership with grace and groundedness. In today's episode, we dive into the foundations of Suzanna's purpose-driven work, her vision for Armenia, and how she balances personal with national responsibility. Susie, thank you so much for joining me today on my podcast. I love talking to people who are doing big things in Armenia, and I really want the world to see how much greatness there is in our country and what kind of accelerated, track record we have and pathway we have right now. It's a very difficult time. It's a very interesting time. It's all at once. And so it's a real pleasure to have you here as one of these builders of Armenia. And my first question to you is, when was it that you sort of understood that, work can be purpose and purpose can be work? I don't think you have a difference there that I personally see. I don't think you personally. I don't think you do life work. It's all one thing for you, and it's all about impact and purpose. When was that realization for you?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. And I don't consider work, and I don't understand the concept of work-life balance, because for me, whatever I have ever been doing, even, my first job at a call center where I was working for 1 month as a first-year student, it was about exploration, experimentation, something I can try, something I can create. I always considered work as a platform for doing something that I believe in, and for learning, mostly. So, for me, work has always been part of of me, basically. And once one of our colleagues asked me when I was already a mom of two, he was like, well, if you were to choose between the kids and your purpose, what would you choose? And I found that question very stupid. Not because the person asking was stupid, but just
just to clarify,
just the way it's formulated is just it's useless formulation, because if you are not you can't be a good mom, right? Or you can be a good friend, or you can be a good spouse. So you have to be you. And for me, whatever I have been doing ever in my life was just me being me, in a flow of a sort. And that's how I am doing what I am doing. And sometimes it might seem that, it's so many different things that I have been doing, and that is true. But it's just part of me living my life. And trying to flow through different opportunities and trying to use the platforms that life is giving to create something.
How old are your kids right now?
They're almost 11 and 8.
And you have a boy and a girl.
Yeah, a girl and a boy.
Yeah, the oldest one is a girl. And I think for girls and boys, obviously too, but for girls specifically, seeing their mom, pursue something that she is passionate about, I think is a really important lesson for any child, especially I think young women and then girls to see. Is there a way to balance being a mother and working, or is that also a myth?
I don't know what the balance in that context would be. I think it's important that kids feel loved, regardless of anything. So as long as the kid feels loved and is safe, I think in that sense you're already doing 90% of the work. And you being happy is also part of them being happy, because you might be making all the sacrifices, which is a very classical notion in Armenian culture. Oh, let's sacrifice everything for our kids. But when you sacrifice, the kid feels that you're sacrificing something and that you're unhappy or that you have limited opportunity to do what you want to do because of them. And that's a big burden for adults later to carry in their lives. So I think if we really care about our kids, we have to make sure that we don't put our burden on them. And we're just happy in a moment as much as it is possible. And also, I think it's also important not to hide from kids when you're tired, where you're frustrated and these types of things, so that they know that humans are humans. You have emotions and it's okay. It's just emotions. There will be days when you will feel disappointed, for example, and it's okay because the next day or an hour later, you will be doing silly stuff together. And I think in that sense, there's so much life in them and there is so much gratitude for the moment that it's very healing in especially the current realities when you constantly have some sort of a turmoil, some sort of a threat, some sort of a disruption and volatility. Home and kids are the most sort of stable place. So you can just go there and there's just love and that's it. And there's nothing more you need. So I think in terms of balance, I'm not sure because you have as much as energy as you have. And sometimes there will be a period where you have to invest a little more in work. There will be a period when you need to invest a little more in friends. And there will be a period when you need to invest a little more in the family. And it's just a constant process of what in that moment is more important.
Prioritization, maybe.
Exactly,
Yeah. I wrote about this a little while ago, that I also don't believe that there's balance. I think there are seasons, and sometimes multiple seasons sort of happen at the same time.
True.
And it's really about your ability to prioritize and not be too hard on yourself to be 100% in every single aspect of your life. I also love what you said about just being honest. My kid is 5, and I'll have hard days, and he can. Children, even if they don't intellectually understand what's happening, they can feel everything.
True.
Even before they start speaking. And so, like, now we have these like discussions after work. Like, he tells me about the stuff that happened at kindergarten, and I tell him the stuff that happened at work, and he's like nodding and really like understanding the situation, and I'll say, this person really didn't understand what I was trying to say in this moment. And I mean, maybe from the side it might seem weird, but I think there's some sort of rapport and connection that we're building of being able to be open and authentic and as you said, human. Today was a good day. And we can talk about that, but then there are days when they're not that great, and that's also fine. It's about how you process all of that.
Yeah, I think it's important for kids to see that you can also manage emotions. I think that's a very important lesson for them, especially in a current pace of life and also with the gadgets, with the content. There's so much dopamine in their life. So I think it's important for them also to see that it's important for you to manage your emotions. And the only way you can teach that is by managing your own emotions. So it's hard to not feel guilty. I think what you're referring to sometimes, about not being hard on yourself. You might understand it with your head.
But here,
but
it feels different.
Exactly. It's very hard to manage it. So it comes and goes. And I think that's also a natural process of building something for yourself, for your purpose, and also taking all the people that you love with you on that journey, because we're literally doing that, right? If you have purpose in your life and you're trying to do what you think is your sort of calling or whatever you want to call it, right? Or what you just enjoy, actually. I wouldn't want to bring, that type of a very heavy wording into this. But you're actually carrying all the people with you on that mission, right? Because they, even if they don't share it, they're coming with you. And then you also have to respect that your family members and your friends also have their own missions. So it's a very interesting process where each person sort of is bringing themselves, and then at the same time, we are all going somewhere together, which is a very interesting process, because you have to be endlessly humble in that process, because it's not about you, it's a flow, right? It's about everyone in the game. So you have to understand how we carefully, safely, and enjoyably go on this journey together. It's like a hike in a way.
Yeah. I think for many women especially, it's important to have a partner who understands that, you know.
Yes.
And is not necessarily on the same trajectory as you, but you're looking in the same direction. They understand that you're not just here to be, you're here to create a body of work that you're proud of. Different people are motivated, you know, by different things, and that's totally fine. But I think in your case, you know, you're working to build a legacy. You're working to build as much impact and bring as much impact as possible to the areas that are important to you. Yeah. So I think, I mean, for me personally, it would be really, really hard for me to do what I do if I didn't have someone who is really standing with me shoulder to shoulder and sort of looking in the same direction.
Oh, yeah. For me, it would be impossible. He's my first fan and first supporter and first critique. And in that sense, none of the things we all achieved sort of together would be possible if we weren't just supporting each other. And sometimes the only person on the planet who understands me is him. And that's also a very normal process, right? Because you choose your life partner to be able to go on this long journey, and we are so different.
Yeah, you don't always like each other very much.
Yes,
through the process.
Yeah, there can be moments, but I think you know, it's a very gratifying process to grow together. We know each other since childhood, and it's just such an interesting process to just, you know, grow together. Not grow each other, because sometimes I think spouses get it wrong. They're like trying to make each other something.
Yeah, no.
It's a useless process.
It's a recipe for a catastrophe.
Exactly. But I think it's a very, very beautiful process when you just witness each other's evolution. I would put it that way. There was this one movie where there was this phrase, which I'm a big movie fan, so we have a lot of quotes on movies.
Great, give it to us.
Yes. So one of the phrases was, you know, you choose a spouse so that someone witnesses your life. And I think it's such an interesting phrase, and there is a big truth to it, because it's. Even if the world collides and, you know, there's no one, there's at least one witness of your life. And it's not because you want someone to recognize your life. It's just because it's such a human thing to want to be seen. And it's enough if one person sees you.
Right.
You don't need
That's beautiful.
Millions of people. I think it is beautiful. I love that phrase.
I remember when I was first building Teach for Armenia, people were like, you're just this obsessed with your work because you don't have a child yet.
Oh, goodness.
And then when you have a child, you're going to forget about Teach for Armenia, and it's not going to be important to you, and none of it is going to matter. And I was like, I mean, what can I say? I don't have a child. Like, I don't think that that's going to happen, but I literally can't respond to that because I don't have a child. And then Leo was born, and it's like my commitment and my obsession and my love for the work that I was doing became even more important. And I feel like children are gifts from above. And when you have a child, like in my case, when I had my child, I almost had like a spiritual leveling up of sorts. I had new ideas. I had revelations. I had moments where I realized that I was just spending way too much time on really stupid things. And now that I have even less time, I need to get really, really focused and only concentrate on the things that are going to have the most, you know, impact as possible. And now I'm expecting our second, and I'm assuming that, you know, there's going to be yet another sort of movement probably forward, or at least a reevaluation of how I'm doing things at this point. So I can go back to that person or those people who were criticizing me for being too into my work, and say that I think that the opposite effect took place when I became a mom.
I think when you become a mom, especially when you will have your second one, you'll see that time is a very weird concept. I think we think of it as something that is sort of fixed, but it's not. It's a very fluid thing, and it's unimaginable how much time how many things you can fit into a time frame. And I think having a kid is doing two things. One is being super appreciative of being in the moment, which is basically stopping the time, which is a beautiful thing. And then the second one is vice versa, trying to maximize time, trying to make sure that the 1 hour, that you have, let's say, creates as much impact as possible, because you don't have the second hour, right? So being a mom is a superpower in terms of multitasking. And I totally agree with you. When I had my first kid, I was working as head of department at the Russian Armenian University. And I also, recently established the European Youth Parliament, UIP Armenia. And I was doing all the legal accounting and all of that for the company as a support for it to be able to operate, basically. And I was doing it at night. I don't know how I'm looking back and I'm trying to understand how exactly was I doing that. I'm not sure. But there were so many things I was doing, and I didn't feel like I was doing it because there's a race and I'm missing out of time and I need to. No, I had enough time for my kid. I also had enough time for work. And it was more like slow cooking. I think the way I would look at it is, you just you do have limited time, so you try to put the buckets of time into different jars, and you slow cook everything. So I wasn't very fast on my career, but I wasn't slow at all. I wasn't present all the time, but I wasn't absent all the time either. I always had time for friends. I always had time for family, and I always also had time for myself. I'm speaking in past tense, but I still do that. I still do. It's just when kids are smaller, you sort of think of it in a different way. But I think it's about also being very very conscious of time. You don't need to rush everything, and then you do need to rush some things. And it's just, again, a process that you try to constantly think, is this important or that is more important? And, which one to sacrifice. It's just a flow.
I love the concept of slow cooking.
Yeah.
I never thought of it like that. My dad gave me really good advice before I went to university. He said, there will be days when you don't want to go to class.
Oh, yeah.
There will be many days like that. But my advice to you, even if you really don't feel like being somewhere, just show up. Just show up. If it's at 10%, if it's at 20%, that's still better than not being in the process, or like not being somewhere, where you can gain knowledge, or you can like. And so that reminds me of slow cooking a little bit, because I think a lot of people think that they have to be 100% each time everywhere. And I think that that's literally impossible. But it is better to say, okay, in this season of my life, I'm at 50%, here or there. And, but to be there. And because I feel like a lot of the issues that I see with between men and women in the workforce is that one of the issues, there's many discrepancies, but one of the issues is I think women kind of fall out of a cycle because they want to prioritize being a mother or having children, being with their children. And I think that the pressure is to be like 100% the best mom ever. And then if they feel like they can't also be 100% the best professional ever, or have a great career, I almost feel like they feel like they need to choose between one or the other so that they can truly be great at one of those things. A lot of guys don't think like that. They're like, there was this really interesting study that showed that men who see a job posting and they like qualify for like 50-60% of it, they very confidently send their resume, and then women feel like they have to almost be like to the T perfect, fulfilling all of these requirements before they even consider sending their resume. And I think that is the big difference. And when I think about, women in the workforce and then the gaps that end up sort of taking place between how fast men get promoted, how much money men end up making versus women, it's not so much that I think someone is deciding, at this point at least, to pay women literally less for the same job and the same like years of experience. I literally think it's just women being outside of a cycle because of their fear of not being 100% in whatever area of either work or home. And they sort of remove themselves from the process. And by the time they come back, things have moved on.
I think it's just, it's useless to make this comparison, actually. And I'll tell you why, because I think we're just very different animals. No, seriously.
That's true.
We're biological animals, right? We're just so different. And there's no use in trying to make us the same. I think the problem of the contemporary world
is that we're
trying to frame men and women into one, box.
Mm-hmm.
We're just so different. It's a useless effort, and no one will ever win the game because by default, even when we didn't start, this was a useless effort. I think we need to change the narrative in terms of how do we make sure that we create environments for men to flourish based on their biology, and then how do we make sure that women flourish based on their biology. And I think there's nothing wrong with having periods when it's slower because that's part of your biology. And unless you have these weird concepts of equity, which is not equity actually. It's again trying to make a squirrel do what a fox has to do. Like it's just so different. These are just two different animals. So you have to just make sure you create the environment that is correct for women and that is correct for men. And also women have to put the pressure off themselves in terms of, if I want to build a career, then I cannot afford having a family or a child, because if I go to maternity leave, then when I come back, this and that. No, I mean, you'll do something else. There will be another flow you go through. This notion of a rat race also is a very dangerous thing.
It's very Western, I think.
It's very Western. It's not natural. I have to say, I think, luckily, we didn't, as Armenians, get caught up in that rat race because we just had too many other problems. Like with the Maslow pyramid, we were down somewhere below. So we were just trying to survive, which means you didn't have the time for the bullshit. And now the Western world got so burned out
that they're looking at us.
The pendulum is going back, and we are in the middle. I think we should embrace that. I think it's a big advantage because we are in the middle. We are both very active, and we could be more active in terms of employment, but in terms of proportion of women in employment. But we are quite active, actually. It's not that bad. And plus, it is important for women, I think, to have children. I think that notion, who said that women have to build families? I think they don't have to. It's just a natural desire to want to have a family. I mean, I don't blame anyone who doesn't want to. That's each person wants to do whatever they want to do. It's their life. No one can judge. However, it's a very natural desire. And if you have that desire, it doesn't mean you can build a career or you will fall out of anything. You won't fall out of anything, And
it's also a totally normal desire to just want to be a mother and not work. There's nothing wrong with that because that's also a very difficult job.
It is a very difficult job. It's a very gratifying job. And I think I think people are just thinking too much of these things. And it's, again, because they have less of survival challenges. And again, I want to try to frame our existential crises in Armenia from a positive perspective, that it just removes the useless hustle around useless discussions that, you just need to live, and without overthinking what shouldn't be overthought and it should be just lived. I think we have that gratitude for life, which is a very big gift, which many in the Western culture, I think at the moment, the pendulum is shaking. That's why I think also we are in a very interesting place in terms of understanding the Asian cultures as well. Like, I love meditation. I love everything related to those Buddhist, Indian, Japanese sort of things, the Chinese, because they are about time. About being in time, about seeing time and unseeing time. And I think that's a very interesting thing we need to teach more people.
I agree with you. I come from an American perspective, and it's been sad to see. I was on the verge myself, because I was raised by an American dad. My mother is Armenian. I spent a lot of time in the U.S. I worked there. I studied there. And we were grilled this notion that, children set you back, and you can't rely on men, and men are bad, and all of these different things. And it took me a while to unlearn all of these things. And I feel very grateful that my life sort of brought me back to Armenia, because I think, as you said, Armenia still is at the intersection of East and West and Europe and Asia and all of these different, we're a very unique culture, I think, in this way. And I think the systems here and the way society works here is also set up for women to be able to pursue everything that they want. Ultimately, there are issues, many issues, and a lot of women have a very difficult time doing that. We won't get into that today, but there's a lot of stuff we need to figure out on the social side here to really enable women to live into their full potential and purpose. But I see a positive trajectory. I think things are progressing, and I'm very thankful that I'm here, because I look at a lot of my friends who are in the U.S. and they're almost 40, and they're really trying to have kids. It's obviously a lot harder when you're older, and I think they're like rethinking a lot of these things, because it didn't need to be so black and white. It could have been a bit of everything. Also, the country isn't, like the U.S. isn't set up to really provide a positive experience to women who are going through pregnancy, who want to go on maternity leave. I mean, it's all very ruthless. But the last thing I'll say on this, I completely agree with you that just, trying to fit, I feel like what's happened up until now is trying to fit women into frameworks that I think have been created primarily based on the male sort of, framework. And I think that's wrong to do inherently, because, as you said, we're just very different sort of animals. And a lot of the diets, a lot of the workout routines, ways of working, all of these different things are built on the notion that, for example, the male body produces less types of hormones that like women do, for example, and their bodies are less complex. Let's just say, let's just say it how it is. They can maybe be on this certain diet or fast for, 48 hours a day, but then for women, there's a completely different consequence for that, because we go through cycles and stages, and one week it's this, the other week it's that, and I even started experimenting with only making really difficult decisions during a certain week of my cycle.
You're overthinking.
I'm over, because I'm like, I like to experiment and I'm analytical, but there's something to be said about that. There's something to be said about that. But anyway, I appreciate your perspective on this. And, I guess my next sort of set of questions is we started to talk about Armenia being a very unique place. Where do you think we are as a society, as a country, just given everything that has and continues to happen every single day? I mean, there was big news that came out a couple of days ago from Washington, D.C. We're recording this in early August. How do you see the trajectory of our country, both from a personal perspective, but also from a professional perspective? Because you're leading the FAST Foundation right now, and you work with thousands of kids and talent, science talent, technology talent. What's your take on where we are?
I always have the realistic optimism lens when it comes to what's going on in Armenia. There is this phrase which I really like that says, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. And it's a cycle. And I think Armenian nation has this unique experience of always having hard times. Mm-hmm. So by the virtue of that, we always have strong men. And I really do mean that. As much as we are all tired, we have collective PTSD, we have limited resources always, and all of that. I still think these hard times historically are creating constantly strong men among us, and men obviously means people. What that means for me is that we are grateful for any opportunity to just live and create, and we can make something out of nothing. And I think these are very unique assets if you use them for the right thing. I think one of the problems we have is we don't use that as an asset. We consider that as a weakness, and we further weaken ourselves. Oh, the world, the unfair world. Oh, the history of Armenian, the victimization of ourselves, I think, is a very dangerous thought. And to be true, I think that thought has been, fueled by many people who don't want us to succeed as well. Like, aside from you yourself naturally also, being tired and doing that. But I think also this narrative has been put on our nation so long about victimization. And I think we really, really need to break that, because I was born here. I was the generation of independence, they called us, because I was born in 91.
The blockade baby.
Exactly. So I had the 90s childhood. And if you ask me what my childhood looked like in terms of the Maslow pyramid, it was fun. But if you ask me, I had the happiest childhood ever. Like, I really can't recall anything negative. For me, all of that was sort of a mini game. And I was really lucky with my family because they were happy. Regardless of that, they loved each other. They were happy. We always had friends in the house. There was joy. And again, that's gratitude for life and for the opportunity to be together, to spend time together, etc. Now, that said, I think that's the short-term aspect. And I think one of the things we need to change is our perception, again, of time and the opportunities we have. Because we, for the first time, have statehood in a long, long time. And that's a big asset. And we don't have institutions. We don't have strong political powers. We don't have established democratic processes, all of that. But we have statehood. That's not nothing, that's everything. And here is where, it's very important for each person to understand how they choose to operate with their citizenship. One of the reasons I established, together with my friend, the European Youth Parliament back in 2012 was because it was about civic education. It was about giving a platform to youth on trying to think, first of all, about their active citizenship role and how they can express it, and then have a platform where they can simulate it. Most of our alumni are somewhere in the government, somewhere leading the NGO sector, somewhere leading the businesses, in global universities, etc. Those were the kids who were given mini platform. They were like, oh, now I thought about it, and now I understand what type of a country I want to live in, and I will do what I can to get there. And this is not about romanticizing the role of each person, but it is about the notion that says, do what you have to, and come what may. So if I think each person in Armenia, and that's where I think the paradigm shift should happen, if each person would think that way, if each person would do what they think is the right thing to do to have a better, community, country, public services, school system, whatever you want to put it into, we would be in a completely different space. I think that the amount of deflection we have in terms of, there's that phrase, any type of proactivity will be punished. That's the old Russian saying that everyone says, right? That has been part of at least 3 generations during Soviet time. So you can't blame people for not being too proactive because they were being punished for being proactive. Right. And that is true. So there is that sort of subconscious behavioral
it's a fear.
Chain. It is a fear. People might not understand it on the conscious level, but there is a fear, and it was a valid fear, right? And even today, today you don't really have that threat, but you don't know as well. I think we as Armenians know that you can't predict the future. That's one thing you can't, but you have to believe in the future. And I think that's a different thing. One thing is you don't know what the future will bring, but you do what is right for that future, right. And whatever will happen, will happen. The other thing is you don't believe in the future. That's why you don't do anything.
And which is a scarier place to be.
It's a very scary place. And unfortunately, many people are exactly there. I think one thing that we all collectively would need to do more and more is just to give ownership to people of their future. No one can take my future away from me. I don't know what it is. I really don't. And that's also a very humbling idea, to know that you don't know whatever you do, what your future will be. You can aspire for some sort of a future, but you don't know, because so many disruption can happen. Life is life. You can't calculate it all, right? But I definitely believe in the future. And it's the small steps. There is no magic in it. It's not, we have to save the world and all of that. It's just, you see trash, you pick it up. You can plant a tree, you plant a tree. You can be kind to someone. Be kind to someone. Someone is unkind to another person. Make sure you come into the game. It's the simple things. It's being demanding of respect and of the belief in the future. I think those are a little bit philosophical, but those are the important concepts we are missing. We talk about the surface a lot, but underneath it, when we say we do a project, we say we are going to bring private school level AI education to Armenian regional high schools. And then you have 1 year of preparation, consultation, hundreds of experts, local, international, saying it's impossible. But when you ask why is it impossible, and you really, really dig into the game, it's not because it's not feasible. It's not because anyone is thinking that you can't produce the quality of the product that you are talking about. It's because they don't think you have the time frame and stability to do it, which is this belief in the future. We have to overcome that. True, I don't know if we have the 10 years I need for the generation AI to become whatever we hope for it to become. But I cannot build what we do on the potential risk that we might not have that time, right? That's a completely different perspective.
You work a lot with the diaspora. And I feel like a lot of the doomsday thinking, unfortunately, comes from there. My personal opinion. And we actually have had some donors stop funding Teach for Armenia not because we did anything wrong, but because exactly what you said, there's just not a belief that there is a future here. How do you go about dealing with that? Because it's almost like when you're here, and I got stuck in Los Angeles during the pandemic for about almost a year. I went for a short business trip and then the whole world shut down. And then the war happened and all these other things happened. And I can kind of understand how easy it is to lose touch with the reality of Armenia when you're far away. It even happened to me. And I'm like one of the most connected people who actually has a team and does work and was like in the day-to-day stuff in Armenia. But when you're here full time and you see all of the challenges, obviously, not only see them, but experience them. But then you're also part of so much goodness and so much greatness happening so quickly. Like, how do you grapple between these two worlds? How do you explain it? Do you explain it? Do you not explain it?
I think it's an interesting question, and I'll tell you why. Because I think you can't control anyone else's emotions. And I think it's important to understand that. You can try to inform them. You can try to share your emotion or your perception of things, but you can't change someone else's emotions. And you're right, I think, in terms of the information flowing just differently to diaspora. And by the way, when we say diaspora, that's one collective term, but it's such
multi-layered and very complex.
Multi-layered, yes, community. I think convincing is useless. Showing things helps. Trying to inspire and give hope to people helps, because in the end of the day, most of those people, again, are just scared that there is no future. And if they see enough going on, if they see enough people thinking there is future, these things are actually, they resonate. Humans are also in that sense very interesting creatures, because we feel energy flows in a way that when we feel that, let's say, if we're in a room of 10 people and 3 of them are fearful and 7 are not fearful, those 3 will convert into being not fearful, right? So I think we just need to be sharing a lot of positive narrative as much as possible. And it's not about being naively optimistic. It's about just telling what you were saying in terms of real great work and changes happening in Armenia constantly. We had one foreign colleague that we were discussing the innovation in education in Armenia and some of the things that are happening in Armenia. And, it was a very critical discussion as to, this and that is not working, the system this, the system that, etc. And he paused the conversation at some point. And he was like, do you really not see how many initiatives at global scale you have in like 3 square meters? And it was a very interesting sort of shout out to that room, because we really don't see it. And one of the reasons we don't see it is we don't talk about it too much, because we talk about the problems a lot, but we don't talk about the successes enough. Because also in our culture, it's considered unmodest to talk about successes. That's a different other cultural thing. The second problem is, I think, we care so much for it to be the perfect process, I don't know, educational system, technological cluster, collaborative culture that we think Armenia can have, that we're frustrated that we're not there. And I think if you realize that our frustration in terms of some of the problems we see on the ground is because we know these things can be overcome, that's a different, I think, paradigm, in a sense that then that's a problem, that we need to solve instead of, oh, it's hopeless to do anything. It's like, it's more than feasible. There's so many things going on and it's more than solvable. And there's enough people in the room who want to solve the problem. And you focus on how do we want to solve the problem rather than should we solve the problem or not? Because I think that's where we are getting stuck a lot, especially with many of the diaspora communities. Is it worth doing something? Is it not worth doing something? And also, many people in diaspora have sense of guilt. So they just give, for example, to many causes without keeping organizations accountable. That's also another problem. You need to keep the organization accountable, right? Second is they just give and they don't give the knowledge. But knowledge is much more valuable sometimes. Expertise and demand of excellence is much more important sometimes than the money, because for years we've seen a lot of money flowing into the country, right? But who was pushing for culture of excellence? Very few people, right? We need to push the culture of excellence, and these types of things. But to be also fair, I think there are a lot of amazing people who, regardless of everything, sort of stay, and they are more than enough. I think we shouldn't be trying to convince people whom it's useless to convince. We need to cherish the people who are convinced, and we need to create that sense of opportunity, hope, winners club, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, for people just to naturally want to flow into the game instead of, us being beggars, us being the winners clubs. We are doing this.
I agree.
Do you want to join the mission? We will be more than grateful. 100%. That's a different thing.
No, you're right. And I agree with you that it feels super overwhelming to think that you need to persuade 100% of people for something to happen. But we all know the critical mass theory. As you said, you only need a group of people operating in a different way, doing things differently. But what you said about the winners club, I agree with you. If it just feels like, Armenians love being on the winning team.
Oh, yeah.
Actually,
humans do.
Well, humans do, but I would say that, like, in the U.S., like, funders usually, not just funders, but there's this thing of, like, the underdog, the American dream, the person who had nothing, who made everything happen, right? We don't have that here. Like, there isn't this, like, glamorization of someone really coming out and like making with, all odds against them, growing it. And I look at Armenia as an underdog at this point, with this massive potential to be so amazing. And I'm so much more attracted to the country because it's an underdog, because it's not on the winning team right now. Because I think that me and many other people can actually have constructive contribution to enabling this underdog to become what it can be. But a lot of the people that I communicate with are absolutely not attracted to that. They want it to be exactly that big thing already in order for them to associate with it, which is human.
It is human. And I would say, for me, Armenia is such a perfect landscape for experimentation, a responsible experimentation. But literally, this is like fertile soil where you can plant whatever you want and experiment with it, right?
Yeah. Well, it's because you're a builder. You're a builder, and that's why that's attractive to you.
Exactly. So for me, it's like, oh my God, there is so much potential in my country, and there are so many amazing people trying to do things, and there is so much flexibility to do creative stuff because many of the things don't exist, so you don't even have to break a wall to do something. You just have to do something. There are very few walls to break, and I'm serious. Like, we work a lot. I have a lot of experience in working many educational systems. I have traveled a lot. I I have a lot of friends doing a lot of policy changes, and from bottom up, from top down in many places. Usually the amount of change management you have to do, the amount of transformation in institutions you have to do is so complex that oftentimes systems don't even try it. Like one of the reasons US school system is in the situation that it is, 50 years ago, it was obvious that academic excellence is going to be a big problem in the American schools, but it's such a big animal that it's so hard, it's so expensive, it's so political to touch it that, for last 50 years, it's been where it has been because it's just too complicated to touch it. But in Armenia, you just really don't have concrete walls. And that's very important, even in the most established institutions, if I can use the word. There's still a lot of space for new things to be done. And there is still much easier way to overcome resistance and challenges and feasibility issues. That's one. There's enormous amount of landscape that just nothing exists. You can just basically do whatever you can and as much as you can with as many people as you can, because just there's nothing. And there are so many sectors, so many fields like that. And if you look at it from that perspective, then the problem is we need just enough people who would see that and who would care starting to do something. And it doesn't have to be grand. I think sometimes people are thinking about nation building as something that, a god has to come from the above with this super capability and a super team and do things. It's not. We have to look at it as entrepreneurship. Because one thing I realized in my career, which was a very hard thing for me as a perfectionist to accept, but the higher you go the ladder and the more you interact with really sophisticated, powerful people, the more you understand no one really knows
what they're doing.
No one knows what the right answer is.
Yeah.
No one knows if they are going to be successful or not. It's about what you were earlier saying, showing up enough times, trying enough times, learning from the mistakes fast enough, acting fast enough, being just persistent and there and iterating in a spiral, just being entrepreneurial in whatever you are doing. It doesn't matter. Is it stage? Yes, there are structures that are a bit more formal. There are structures that are less formal, but it's all about creating. And what is creation? It's experimentation, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it was a very hard thing for me to realize that that these people are not, these super powered, magical people, the illusion I had as a kid, in terms of who are
these giants,
the statesmen, right? Who are the big businessmen. But I'm not saying because I think they are less than I was hoping they will be, but because they are human. Mm-hmm. And when you realize that, you understand it's just about trying and trying and trying and trying and being excited about the opportunities. And I think we need to ignite a little bit more of that, just being excited, like of the opportunity rather than seeing a risk. And it is very human to see the risk. So, it's our instinct of survival to see the risk first, right? To see more risks. That's how we survived. But again, I think we need to ignite a little bit more of excitement about opportunities and then just have people try and do, just do. Even if you are not confident it will be what you were saying, the perfect 100%, but prepare enough and be fast and iterate, learn fast. That's I think
the point you're making around speed is very important.
Yes.
And I think that's one of Armenia's greatest advantages. When you look at other countries, they're so highly regulated and bureaucratic, and they have a protocol and a mechanism for literally every single thing. And it's, in a way, obviously, these systems are way more complex and developed, but they're not necessarily working, as you said. And the U.S. has one of the worst public education systems in the world, and it's the richest, country in the world. So, those two things, especially with AI and technology and the fourth industrial revolution, I think a lot of these things are being sort of brought to the surface, and we're asking questions. Everyone is asking questions. I think a lot of these models are being disrupted. Higher education, I mean, lots of disruption there. Public schools in general, what are their purpose? How are we reimagining them? I think this is such an incredible moment in time to be where we are in the work that we're doing, because everything is up for a rethink and reimagination. And I think that's so exciting, and in a country like Armenia, as you said, I think the problem that we've always faced is that there is a lack of regulation. There is a lack of, thinking through a chain and a system. And some of these things are not operating as a system whatsoever and have never operated as a system. But now that we're here and we're kind of assessing all of this and we're thinking about what it's going to take for Armenia to be competitive in this new world that we find ourselves in, it's almost to our advantage. Like, the fact that none of this has been done before is almost to our advantage, because, as you said, we can create it quickly, we can test it quickly, we can iterate on it quickly, because we get to learn from it in an accelerated way. And our size and the fact that we're homogenous, there's a lot of things that we have to our advantage that a lot of countries don't. And that's why I always see and have been talking to people about Armenia being positioned as a global learning lab, for various sectors, not just in education, not just in technology, because our cycle of learning can be a lot faster than in any other place.
True. I think, in an utopic scenario, and there have been attempts for that, we would, gather the global Armenian minds in each sector and try to imagine what that future of that sector is, and try to then, build experimentations around that. We, I think, are not there yet, although we are getting close. It's very interesting how the adversary of the war has created this emotional urge to do more. We've seen repatriation of many families, which is illogical in a way that, many diaspora Armenians think that it's dangerous to be here. And maybe it is, but I don't think any of us living here feel that way. And it's not because it's less pain, whatever happened to Artsakh and is continuing to happen around us. It's just about us being, I think, grateful to live on our homeland and try to create as much as we can for as much time as we have. And it's irrational. And we have to know that this is an irrational thing. Like when you love someone, right? You can't rationalize that, right? No. You just love. If you love someone, you know that you just love them. And it doesn't matter what the objective reality is. It's the same, I think, with the love for Armenia. Like, I think, for me as someone who was born here, you just know this is your home. Like, you go on top of the mountain, you might not even know what historically happened on that mountain, and it doesn't really matter because it's not about that type of an understanding of your homeland. It's just having that absolute sense of love and belonging. And I think there are many people who are longing for that opportunity to feel at home. And for some Armenians, that home is Armenia. Mm-hmm. And we have seen some amazing people come live here and create here and feel at home. And that's a very beautiful process. And I think the more people we have like that, the better. I think for many people abroad, it's very painful. Either because they can't come for various reasons, B, because they had high hopes of what Armenia could be, and let's say for whatever reason they got disappointed and tired. And yes, there were so many things happening in this country. You can be broken here. There is extractional culture, or whatever you want to call it. At least there was. So many people fled and they don't want to come back, which is tragic. I think it's tragic. But I would look at it as a cycle. And I think we need to realize that we have enough very capable and very caring people who are trying to do something for Armenia as a country and for Armenians in general, globally. And we need to be less harder on ourselves, what you're saying about women as Armenians. I think we're so hard on ourselves in that sense. We don't celebrate each other enough. We need to celebrate each other more. There's that stupid joke in Armenia, that everything was going bad and my neighbor bought a BMW. You know that joke? It's about that, you have your hardships and, even to make it even worse, your neighbor bought a BMW. Like, what does it have to do with you, right? But there is this, mentality which I think we need to really break. We need to celebrate each other's successes more. We need to be supportive of each other more. And there is a lot of that. There are just a lot of beautiful people, and we need to see that more and spread that narrative a little more.
On that beautiful note of love and solidarity and supporting each other, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everything you do for Armenia. Thank you for loving Armenia in the way that you do. I think what you said about standing on a mountain, not maybe understanding what happened exactly there, but just feeling the earth, the soil, and having love for this piece of land is so powerful. And seeing the people who are here, who come and go, and some are great and some are not so great, that should never deter us from feeling connected to our homeland. Susie, thank you so much, my friend, for everything and for sharing your wisdom and positivity with us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, Larisa. Thank you.